Most wake up believing a $150,000 salary is the key to the kingdom, the line where struggle ends. But for the middle class, that raise isn't a ladder. It's the first brick in a golden prison. I've watched Wall Street grind people into dust for decades. Today, I'll show you how earning more might be destroying your future and how to identify the exact second your lifestyle turned into a trap you can no longer escape. To understand this cage, we look at a man who should have been immune. History remembers investors for spreadsheets, but the best understood the intrinsic value of a human life. There's a story whispered in firms about a man named Arthur. He wasn't a failure. He was a star. But Arthur's story is the blueprint for the trap we all face today. He is the cautionary tale of how brilliance is often bought, then buried under the weight of more. Arthur entered finance in the 1940s, sharp and hungry. He lived in a drafty Brooklyn apartment and took the subway smelling of damp wool. He was a disciple of discipline, saving 50% of his income and seeking a margin of safety in every nickel. He had a physical buoyancy that only absolute solvency provides. If he lost his job, he could survive for 2 years. He was, in every sense, a free man. Then, the 1950s boom arrived, psychological earthquake. The American dream shifted from security to display. The white picket fence had to be taller than the neighbors. Arthur, despite his genius, succumbed to the biological urge to signal status. It started with a promotion and a Patek Philippe watch. He called it a professional investment to look the part. He didn't realize he'd just handed the warden the first key to his cell. This is the Diderot Effect. After the philosopher Denis Diderot got a scarlet gown, his old desk looked shabby. He replaced it, then the rug, then the chairs. Soon, he was a slave to his things. Arthur lived the mid-century version. The watch made his suits look like rags. The suits made the subway feel dangerous. The necessity of the image began to dictate the reality of his bank account. Within 24 months, Arthur moved to a Westchester estate and joined the country club. On the outside, he was the poster child for success, earning the equivalent of $250,000 today. But inside, his edge was dulling. The fire that drove him to find ugly, profitable stocks flickered out. He stopped taking risks. He couldn't afford to be wrong and alone anymore. He had too much to lose, so he chose safe mediocrity to protect his paycheck. A partner once asked, "Arthur, what is your margin of safety?" Arthur laughed, pointing to his 12% returns. The partner shook his head. "I'm talking about your life. You've built a lifestyle that requires 95% of your energy just to keep the lights on. A man who cannot say no is not a free man." Arthur dismissed it, believing he could outrun expenses with more income. It's the great delusion, solving a spending problem with more earnings. In 2026, we confuse income with wealth. Income is water in a pipe. Wealth is the reservoir. Arthur became a high-pressure pipe, channeling money directly to banks and car dealers. He kept nothing. When merger rumors hit, the old Arthur would have been fine, but the Westchester Arthur was paralyzed. He couldn't survive 90 days without that salary. He wasn't working for a future. He was servicing the ghost of past purchases. Inside the office, Arthur's edge was dulling. The fire that drove him to find deep value investments, the kind requiring balls of steel, flickered out. He stopped taking risks. In meetings, he became the voice of hesitation. He no longer advocated for ugly stocks that everyone hated but were sound. Instead, he pushed for safe blue chips. They offered mediocre returns but were socially acceptable. More importantly, they wouldn't get him fired. He had too much to lose. Arthur couldn't afford to be wrong and alone anymore. His lifestyle required perfection. This is the pivot point where most professionals die inside. They trade their unique perspective for the safety of the herd. When you have a massive mortgage and tuition bills, your primary job is no longer analyst or engineer. Your job is bill payer. Your creativity is the first thing you sacrifice at the altar of your overhead. You are no longer playing to win. You are playing not to lose. One rainy Tuesday, a senior partner pulled him aside. He asked a question that would haunt Arthur forever. "Arthur, what is your margin of safety?" Arthur laughed, thinking of his ticker symbols. "My portfolio is up 12% this year. I've got plenty of margin." The partner shook his head. "I'm not talking about stocks, son. I'm talking about your life. You've built a lifestyle that requires 95% of your energy just to keep the lights on. You've removed your ability to say no. A man who cannot say no is not a free man, regardless of the zeros on his paycheck," the partner continued. Arthur dismissed it as the ramblings of an old-timer who didn't understand the new economy. He believed that as long as his income kept rising, he could outrun his expenses. It's the great American delusion, the belief that the solution to a spending problem is more income. But income is a treadmill. If you don't control the speed, it eventually throws you off. This is the fatal flaw of the modern middle class. We confuse income with wealth. Income is the water flowing through a pipe. Wealth is the reservoir you build. Arthur had become a high-pressure pipe. He was channeling massive amounts of money from his firm directly to the bank, the car dealership, and the private school. He kept nothing. He was a conduit for other people's wealth, living in a house he didn't own, driving a car the bank could take, wearing a watch he couldn't afford. The breaking point didn't come from a crash. It came from a corporate merger. The air in the office turned cold as rumors of layoffs circulated. The old Arthur, the one from the drafty Brooklyn apartment, would have been fine. He would have taken a severance, read philosophy for 6 months, and waited for the right deal. But the Westchester Arthur? He was paralyzed with terror. He realized at 3 a.m. that he couldn't survive 90 days without that high salary. Stress began to erode his soul. He worked longer hours to prove loyalty to bosses he despised. He missed his kids' plays and his wife's birthdays. His marriage became a series of negotiations about cash flow. He was earning more than 99% of the world, yet he felt poorer than the guy cleaning the office floors. Arthur was a victim of lifestyle creep, specifically a lethal strain, the golden handcuffs of expectation. When you're rich, you're expected to be lavish. The middle class is the only group trapped in this void spending like the rich, while relying on labor like the poor. One evening, Arthur looked at his own reflection. He realized he was like a company with too much debt. In the margin of his life, his conscience had scribbled in red ink, "Fragile. Avoid at all costs." He had bought into a growth story, his future raises, without a margin of safety. He was a 95% leveraged human being. One 10% drop in revenue meant insolvency. Arthur didn't go bankrupt. He kept the house and car. But he lost 25 years doing work he hated to impress people he didn't like. He became a cynical, tired man who never took a vacation longer than a week because he couldn't afford to be away from the paycheck. When he died, his net worth was shockingly low. Most of his millions had evaporated into depreciation and interest. He had spent his life building a cage so beautiful, he forgot he was the prisoner inside. How does this apply to you in 2026? If you're making $70,000, you dream of $100,000. At $150,000, you think $250,000 is the magic number. You think the next raise will finally allow you to save. It won't. Not unless you change your philosophy. The trap operates on 3 levels. First, the baseline shift. Your brain normalizes luxury instantly. The high-end coffee and organic delivery become minimum requirements. You don't get happier. You just become more expensive to operate. Second, the efficiency of debt. The modern financial system is a predator designed to hunt income, not assets. When you get a raise, the bank doesn't see a saver. They see a borrower. They offer you a larger mortgage and a higher credit limit before the ink on your promotion is dry. They are handing you the rope to hang yourself, and most people say, "Thank you." They've commoditized your future labor before you've even performed it. Third, the time famine. High-consumption lifestyles require high-intensity labor. You cannot take a sabbatical. You cannot switch to a lower-paying, more fulfilling career. You become a coward in the face of management because you have bills to pay. Your debt has turned your time into a commodity you no longer own. You are trapped in a cycle where you must work harder to pay for the things that were supposed to make your life easier. Arthur's story is your warning. The only way to escape the trap is to decouple your ego from your spending. Truly successful people don't live simply because they have to. They live simply because they value their independence more than their image. They understand that a $150,000 car is just a metal box that depreciates, while a $150,000 portfolio is a machine that buys back your freedom. Choose which one you want to serve. If you get a raise and immediately upgrade your life to match it, you have gained exactly nothing. You've just increased the speed of the treadmill. Real freedom, the kind that lets you sleep through the night, comes from the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is your power. That gap is your forget you money. It is the only thing that stands between you and the whims of a corporate merger or a bad boss. Don't be Arthur. Don't build a golden cage and hand the key to your boss. The only upgrade that matters is the one that buys back your time. Every luxury purchase is a withdrawal from your freedom account. In 2026, the real status symbol isn't a watch or a car. It's the ability to walk away from any situation without checking your bank balance first. That is the ultimate luxury. Let's speak plainly about the current state of the union. In 2026, we see the same patterns repeating, just with different labels. You think a fatter paycheck is your ticket to liberty, but for most, it's just a heavier chain. Arthur's descent into the wilderness of more is a mirror reflecting the peril of the modern professional. We are chasing the life while losing the ability to actually live it. Imagine Mr. Market isn't a stock ticker, but a guy who shows up at your door every day. He doesn't offer you stocks. He offers you a lifestyle. He shows you the SUV with the third-row seating you don't need and the subscription services you don't watch. Mr. Market whispers, "You've earned this." And most people believe him, trading their margin of safety for a mirage of progress. Go back to Arthur in 1948. He wasn't just saving money. He was building a fortress. His wealth was liquid. He owned no car, no finery. His risks were hedged. If his firm collapsed, he could walk away whistling. That is the fortress of reason. Not a marble foyer, but a moat of cash protecting your ability to choose your own path. He understood that liquidity is the ultimate defensive weapon in an uncertain world. But the post-war boom was a siren song. Factories were humming, and the American dream was being rebranded as the American purchase. Arthur's Patek. Felipe was just the beginning. Character doesn't depreciate, but everything Arthur bought did. The Diderot Effect is a psychological parasite. It makes your current life feel inadequate the moment you introduce one superior object. You begin to serve your possessions rather than owning them. Bespoke suits, the Cadillac, the Westchester house. These weren't just items. They were monuments to conformity. Arthur's expenses ballooned, perfectly mirroring the national shift from thrift to display. The American dream, once rooted in self-reliance, became a parade of debt-funded possessions. He was building a theater of success, but he was the only one paying for the tickets. In meetings, Arthur's transformation was complete. He championed safe plays, fearing any controversy. But safety isn't in popularity. It's in the discount to intrinsic value. By 1953, Arthur's life had zero margin. He was a 95% leveraged human being. He was socially successful, but mathematically terminal. He could no longer afford the luxury of his own opinion. Now, look at 2026. Inflation's hangover is still here. Necessities are up over 30% since the start of the decade, while wages have lagged. A $150,000 salary now barely covers the baseline shift for a family of 4 in a major city. Your brain normalizes the $7 latte and the $100,000 SUV lease. You're chasing raises, but the banks are chasing you with even larger loans. The numbers have changed, but the trap remains identical. In meetings, Arthur's transformation was complete. He championed safe plays, fearing any controversy. But as his mentor said, safety isn't in popularity. It's in the discount to intrinsic value. By 1953, Arthur's life had zero margin. He was a 95% leveraged human being. He had traded his ability to be right and alone for the comfort of being wrong and with the crowd. In the world of investing, that is the fastest way to lose everything. In life, it is even faster. Now, look at 2026. Inflation's hangover is still here. Necessities are up over 30% since the start of the decade, while wages have lagged. A $150,000 salary now barely covers the baseline shift for a family of 4 in a major city. Your brain normalizes the $7 latte and the $100,000 SUV lease. You're chasing raises, but the banks are chasing you with even larger loans. You're running faster just to stay in the same place. Only 21% of middle-income Americans expect their finances to improve this year. Why? Because of the golden handcuffs. Stock options that vest in 3 years and pensions tied to tenure are just sophisticated ways to ensure you never leave your desk. You're trading your scarcest asset, time, for trinkets. You've become a high-performance engine that consumes all the fuel it produces, leaving no reserves for the journey ahead. When merger rumors hit Arthur's firm in 1957, he panicked. His mortgage was $4,000 a month, a fortune. Then, his car payments were compounding. The old Arthur would have read Marcus Aurelius and waited for a bargain. The new Arthur stayed up all night, terrified. His marriage, once a partnership, became a ledger of stress. He realized that his high status was actually a high-maintenance debt that he could no longer service. Arthur was fragile. A void, he became a leveraged entity where debt eclipsed equity. No bankruptcy occurred, just 25 years of stagnation. He died with a net worth that was a pittance compared to the millions he had earned. This is the fate of 41% of middle-class households today who would have to borrow money just to handle a $5,000 emergency. They have the appearance of wealth, but the structural integrity of a house of cards. How do you build the fortress of reason? First, master Mr. Market in your own home. Ignore the neighbors and the dip in interest rates that allows you to buy a bigger house. Buy the house only if it fits 25% of your net worth, not 25% of your gross income. Diversify your life. Don't just have one income stream. Have pursuits that don't depend on a boss's whim. True safety is having multiple exits from any room you enter. Second, build a real margin of safety. It's not about your portfolio return. It's about your runway. Aim to save 50% of every raise you ever get. Live on last year's salary and bank the rest. In the ledger of life, intrinsic value is measured in hours of freedom time with your family, or the ability to pursue a passion that doesn't pay a dime. Your savings isn't just money. It's the power to say no without hesitation. Third, decouple your ego from your bank account. The middle class tries to look rich while working like the poor. Reject both. Wealth is what remains after the bills are paid. Power is the ability to say no to anyone, at any time. If you're earning $70,000, don't dream of the $100,000 car. Dream of the 50% savings rate. Audit your life ruthlessly. Track every dollar for 90 days. You'll find the leaks, the subscriptions, and the dining out that drain your moat. We see this everywhere in 2026. Tech workers making $300,000 a year are rating their finances as poor because they've trapped themselves in overpriced suburbs with mandatory dual incomes. One parent wants to stay home with the kids, but they can't. The debt won't allow it. They are the modern Arthurs, enduring burnout because of golden handcuffs. They have reached the peak of the mountain only to find they are chained to the summit. Now, look at the winners. Look at the people who retired at 40, the FIRE movement. They embody the code, intrinsic value first. They save 50 to 70% of their income, not because they are cheap, but because they are greedy for their own freedom. They understand that every dollar spent on a status symbol is an hour of their life they will never get back. They don't want to own the world. They just want to own their Tuesday mornings. Beware the psychological snares. The hedonic treadmill ensures that your happiness stays flat while your spending rises. The time famine ensures that the more you spend, the less time you have to enjoy it. In 2026, the car lease is a chain. View your life as a balance sheet. Your skills and health are assets. Your duties and debts are liabilities. Invest in yourself, not your image. Your net worth is what you are, not what you show. Remember the parable of the fisherman. A merchant tells him to work harder and build an empire so that one day he can retire and fish. The fisherman replies, "I'm already doing that." Arthur forgot that the goal of the game is to play, not to collect the most equipment. Don't spend 30 years trying to buy the right to a life you could have today if you simply lowered your overhead. The simplest path to freedom is needing less of it. In 2026, resilience is low. 50% of the middle class fears they can't afford the essentials. Yet, opportunity is everywhere for those with cash. While others are leveraged to the hilt, the person with a margin of safety is the only one who can go shopping when the world goes on sale. Volatility is a disaster for the fragile, but it is a fire sale for the prepared. The best time to be a buyer is when everyone else is forced to be a seller. Escape requires discipline. Track your net worth quarterly, but track your freedom days daily. If your income stopped today, how many days could you survive? If the answer is less than 180, you are in the trap. Shun the golden handcuffs. Negotiate for time, not just money. Say no to the lifestyle bid. Real success is not having a big house, but having no anxiety when you look at your bank account on a Sunday night. Arthur's tragedy is timeless because it is human. He chased the display and lost his dignity. You living in 2026 have a chance to reclaim the dream. True self-reliance isn't about how much you make. It's about how little you need. When you reduce your needs, you increase your power. You become unfireable because you no longer fear the pink slip. You become a free agent in a world of industrial serfs. As the years passed, Arthur became a ghost in the machine, a cautionary tale for the new hires. But you don't have to be a ghost. You can choose peace. You can choose the dignity of choice. Your life's intrinsic value soars the moment you stop encumbering it with things that don't matter. You are more than your job title, and you are certainly more than your debt. Shun the creep. Embrace the code. The gap between what you earn and what you spend, that is your power. That is your liberty. That is your ultimate triumph. Do not build a golden cage and hand the key to your boss. Build a fortress of reason and keep the gate locked. Your future self will thank you for the silence and the space you created today. The tragedy of Arthur doesn't have to be yours. In 2026, the world is louder than ever, demanding your attention and your cash. Reject the noise. Focus on the reservoir, not just the pipe. When you finally stop chasing the mirage of more, you'll find that you already have everything you need to be free. The story ends here, but your journey toward independence begins now.